The Artist Life podcast is brought to you by Real Creative Heart. Heavy the head that reps the crown. With love, your greatness is found. So rep your crown.
Live from Greensboro, North Carolina.
Art is life.
Welcome to the Art is Life podcast with your host, Russell C. Holt, where we sit down with artists from all career fields and we discuss their perspectives on their art and what it means to them in life. So sit back, have fun, and enjoy the ride. Welcome back, guys. We are here again on another special episode. I know I said I had a special episode last time because that was my first Zoom meeting. Well, this is my second Zoom interview, but it's the first time I have a couple on. Power couple that is in the art industry together, and I wanted them to be on together for that specific reason, so they can talk about their different experiences. We have one that's an actor and a dialect coach in Tiffany Gilly-Forrer, right?
Tiffany Gilly-Forrer.
Oh, right. I was right. Tiffany Gilly-Forrer. And then my man, Chris, that we graduated together. He was in my cohort. He was a directing student. And he is also an actor. We did some acting in our second to last semester in one of the best classes, the film class with my man Flannery, the Flan Man.
Oh, that class was tight.
Yes,
that class was tight.
But yes, so they're together. They are in North Carolina right now, but they will be soon, as of Friday, moving to Utah and going on their adventures after graduation. Tiffany graduated prior, but so we'll let Tiffany explain all that stuff for us as far as what happened and everything like that. So, ladies and gentlemen, I thank you for joining us, and I want to introduce Tiffany Gilly-Forrer and my man CGF, Chris Gilly-Forrer. Thank you for joining us today. And so I would like, both of you guys, you can touch base on, how Tiffany, how you became a actor and a dialect coach, and then Chris will get into that as well with you as far as acting and directing and yeah.
Cool. Sounds good. Yeah. I started my acting career, I guess, when I was in high school, middle schoolish. I was doing church skits about like little goofy, funny things to start youth group, and found that I liked that group of people a lot because they were weird and goofy, I guess, and I felt like I fit in. And so then in middle school, I auditioned for a show, and I had to choose between that and another extracurricular activity. And I chose the other thing, and I wish I hadn't, because when I went and saw the play, I cried because I wasn't in it. Not because it was good, but because I wasn't in it. Mm-hmm. So I was like, oh, okay, maybe I want to do that. So when I got into high school, started doing plays and musicals and stuff. And then from there, I started dreaming of going to Juilliard and being on Broadway. And then I had a really big life event happen when I was 16. I was put in foster care. I got taken away from my mom and all my siblings. We got separated. And so theater actually helped me a ton to get through that. It was a place that I felt like I had friends that could listen to me and a place to express myself. So I just really felt happy doing that. And so after that, I went to college for it. I got accepted to a small college in Oregon, and it had a great program because it was smaller. So it gave me a lot of opportunities that you don't get in a bigger school because you have to compete against everybody. So I didn't have to do that. And when I finished that program, I worked for a few years. I got married and did a few things here and there, but wasn't really fulfilled in the work I was doing because I was living far away from the city. So it was hard to find good work. So after that, I had my theater degree. We moved back to Oregon my ex-husband and we got divorced. And that was when I started really pouring myself into the craft part of it, besides when I was in undergrad. So when I was in undergrad, I really was immersing myself in the craft. And then after that, I was kind of pulled back for a little while career-wise. And then when I was post-divorce, I was, leaning on that again to process and get through the hard thing that I was going through. So then I was interested in grad school just because I didn't have the networking that I really thought a professional needed, or if somebody who had lived in a bigger city, not Portland, Oregon, would have. So I was like, let's go to grad school. So I auditioned for the URDAs and got accepted to Louisiana State University and moved all the way to Louisiana. And Chris came with me. That was when Chris and I had been together at that point. We met doing a play together in a theater company that he started. And after earning my MFA, which was a very hard 2 years, in between, undergrad and grad, I did a lot of Shakespeare stuff. So my experience was really growing and strong in like Shakespeare and outdoor stuff and small professional companies in Portland. And so moving to Louisiana was like a huge, huge change. And when I graduated, I sent my resume out to studios here in North Carolina because Chris got accepted to grad school at UNCG, as you know. And so I was like, I'm not going to graduate grad school and move to an area that doesn't have a ton of work and not do some work. So when I was in grad school, I focused on voice and speech because I was like, I like this area. I think this is great. And then I also did stuff with intimacy because I saw that there was some need there. So that's how I ended up teaching at 2 studios, and I got some gigs working as a voice coach at UNCG and got an agent, and I've been professionally acting for a bit now. So that's sort of like my long journey to
Nice,
how I got here.
I also want to make a point that Tiffany did help me on my dialect for Peter and Starcatcher. So if whether it was good or bad, just blame her. So
you did a great job.
But yes, she definitely a good voice and dialect coach for sure.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Now CGF.
Well, like so many of us, I got started in high school. I kind of never really had a particular interest in it. Actually, humorously, I until the 6th grade, if I had to give a speech or a presentation in front of the class, I would cry and they would let me not do it. I hated speaking in front of people. So I was like, theater, absolutely not. No, you couldn't pay me. And, I started softening up a little bit. My freshman year of high school, one of my best friends on earth, the best man at my first wedding. I'm also previously divorced. Leaf Jaden. He convinced me in the 8th grade to join the select choir in the mornings. I'd never sang before. I was like, okay. So I started doing that. Freshman year, he convinced me to come and start coming to speech and debate practices. And I was like, okay, you know that story about me and public speaking, like that they do not go together. But I went anyway. And he convinced me to try out for the musical in the spring, which was Oklahoma, which I cannot believe that's like a part of my theatrical journey forever. And I can't do anything to change it because that play is so... Can we swear on the show? Is that like kosher?
If you want to, man.
Okay, that play's fucked up.
I don't really know much about it, so...
Now he's going to get an explicit warning.
I could go on, but I won't another time. And the choir director really pushed me to do it because they needed more male voices, because of course they did. And so I was like, okay, I'll audition and I have to do what? I have to sing, I have to dance. You want me to do what at this audition? And I told my dad. He was in town visiting for a weekend. My dad and my stepmom lived in San Jose. We lived up by Portland, my mom and I and my brothers. And he said, you're going to audition for a play. I said, yeah. And he said, well, I did that in high school. And come to find out, like, not only did he do it in high school, he did it semi-professionally afterwards and sort of had an opportunity to go down to Los Angeles. And one of his instructors wanted to like shop him around, try and get him picked up by an agency. And he decided to marry his first wife instead, which is not my mom. So, choices were made. So there's this connection I never realized. So I auditioned and I got in, and first, Mrs. Dempsey, Mama D, told me, I want to be a cowboy. Of course you want to be a cowboy. The cowboys are fucking cool. The farmers are lame. Like they're just like walking around being angry and like, don't touch our daughters, whatever. And then we get ready for the first rehearsal of like the first cowboy number. And she's like, actually, I needed to switch you to a farmer. So like there's 4 freshman boys in the cast. All 3 of the other ones are cowboys, and I'm a freaking farmer. Like, this sucks. And I wasn't really like into it still. I was kind of like, all right. So next year rolls around, and the musical in the fall was Into the Woods. And that kind of changed everything. I sort of was shocked that it could be like that the music could be that good and the story could be that powerful, and surprising. I mean, like Act 1 to Act 2 of that play is a complete 180. And so I was obsessed with it. I auditioned. I didn't make the callbacks. I was sad. I think there were like 7 performances, and I think I saw 5 or 6 of them. And I was like, all right, this is it. This is the thing I want to do. So I signed up for the drama class finally, and jumped in the spring. And off I went with that. As for when directing started to kind of scratch at my brain, I don't really know that there's a moment. Like when we were seniors in high school, we could direct 1-act plays in between the musical and the non-musical. Mm-hmm. And so Leaf and I, there's Leaf again, co-directed a show called The Two Halves of Andrew's Brain, about this teenager and all of the different sides of his personality, like his left and right brain, his anxiety, his anger, things like that. Very high school 1-act type thing, right? So Leaf and I were like, all right, we're gonna get real wild with this. And instead of just like doing the show and setting in his room or whatever, we cut the stage in half, and they were exact mirror opposites of the bedroom. And on one side of the stage, we saw the actual kid, Andrew, like going through his day to day. And on the other side of the stage, all the parts of the brain were like moving in similar patterns to him, but doing their own thing in that. So I was like, this is kind of rocks. And she picked us as the best directors. So we were recognized at the 1-Act Awards. She said, if y'all want, you can direct something again for state. And we were like, hell yeah. So we directed this shorter play, Drugs Are Bad, which is like a after school special. But the parents are trying to get their kid to do drugs and drink alcohol and like listen to death metal. And the kid's like, no, I have to drink milk and study and stuff like that. It's pretty funny. And that won at state, and the actors went and competed at nationals that year. I couldn't afford to make the trip to nationals, but they went and competed. And so went to school, 30 minutes from Tiffany, which is really funny. George Fox.
We did not know each other.
George Fox did not like Lidfield. They called us Sinfield because they were repressed Baptists. And we drank and enjoyed ourselves. And you told Janet, my mentor, who's from North Carolina, who was directed in some shows by John Gully, actually, my mentor at UNCG when they were younger. I told Janet, like, I want to direct a show. And I kept telling Janet that for 4 years until she was probably ready to kill me. And my senior year, I directed the first show on the season, and took an internship at PCPA, Pacific Conservatory of Performing Arts, which is a regional company in the Central Coast of California. Got to work under their resident and guest directors. They hired me to direct their education outreach tour the second year that I was there, which was my first paid theatrical gig. I felt like a king. $1,500 for directing a show. I was like, this is awesome. Yeah. Doesn't get better than this. And like Tiffany said, when I got back to Oregon, my now ex-wife and I, and a third person who she met when she did the training program at PCPA, we started a theater company. We started an outdoor classical theater company called Penguin Productions. And the mission statement was to create classical theater for contemporary audiences. So we were trying to find the conversations that are happening now that Shakespeare's text sort of touches, and bring them to the forefront. So the first season, I directed a gender inverted Macbeth with a female soldier Macbeth, and Lady Macbeth as Lord Macbeth, who is like a stay-at-home husband, housekeeper sort of thing, and kind of explored the way that those dynamics sat and the way that the military men interacted with him. And that was pretty cool. We hired a director to do the other show, As You Like It, and she cast Orlando as a butch lesbian who was male presenting, and that sort of, rather than it just being about, Roz is in disguise and what does the disguise mean for them in the Forest of Arden, it's like, what does the disguise mean for Orlando every single day of their life? You know what I mean? And I was like, man, we're going to get letters. People are going to picket this. Like Newburgh, where we were doing the show, was like super conservative. I was like, oh man, we're in big trouble. But people showed up. They loved it. I was like, great. So did that the next season. And then my marriage started falling apart. And I realized that I had irreconcilable artistic differences with our third partner. Did not seem that he was really that on board with what we agreed the mission statement was going to be. So I stepped out, which still kind of sucks. But it was the right choice. So I stepped out, met this one doing a show the second season. We started dating, fell in love with her pretty much immediately, and had to kind of like submerge it a little bit so she didn't like run away. I'm like, this guy's way too serious, way too fast. And we went to Baton Rouge. She started grad school. I got into UNCG. And man, here we are. But what a long and winding road it's been.
Yes, I wanted to touch on a couple of things that you said. First, as far as I guess I'll talk about it now because we'll probably steer back toward, we'll reel back to it. But when you was talking about the gender bending of the Shakespeare, now when you did that, did you feel pressure or was it a challenge to go like do the gender reversing? But did you like stay with the same script, or did you like twist it a little bit, or was there any pushback for you to do that, like, or did you have freedom to just you do whatever pretty much, but like still get the point across?
That's a great question. Script wise, I definitely went in and adjusted some pronouns. I didn't change all of them. So most of the time, when people referred to Macbeth, that was a female identifying actor, they used she, her pronouns. Most of the time when people referred to Lord Macbeth, they used he, him pronouns. There were some selective spots I left the she, her pronouns for Lady Lord Macbeth, specifically when Duncan and Banquo and Malcolm and the soldiers come to their castle. And Lord Macbeth is sort of showing them around. I kept Duncan using she, her pronouns as sort of like emasculating this guy who chose not to be a warrior after like the whole country's been at war. And it kind of made the plot to kill Duncan hit a little bit different for some of the audience. They're like, I kind of get it. That was pretty much like the big text thing. And then like I cut the bejesus out of it. I think it was like a 2 hour and 5 minute cut, which is as long as that play needs to be. As far as like pushback goes, so I mean, you know me, like I'm a man of action. And so if I know that I'm going to do something, I'm going to say, I'm going to do this. And I don't hedge my bets and I don't like play it close to the chest in case it doesn't work out. I go and do it. And so when we announced the season and announced sort of like unveiled the company, we've been sort of talking about it to a lot of the PCPA folks. When I put in the casting notice, I was like, I am casting either a woman or a person of color to play Macbeth. It was in the casting notice from day one. So my feet are on the fire. We are making this happen because those are the stories I'm interested in telling. I don't think we need another white dude Macbeth. At least I don't care about that.
Right.
And so I don't want to like say a bad word about my former partner, but also he was like, why did you do that? Like, what if we don't get that? Now we're going to look terrible. And I said, well, Garrett, that's why, because we need to. And if we're going to do something, we need to say we're going to do something, and then we need to do it. So there was that. Also, with the changing of, because there's the real famous scene between Macbeth and Lady Macbeth of like, when you durst do it, then you were a man, and to be you so much more the man. Da da da. Garrett was kind of like, yeah, you're gonna have to help me understand how that's gonna work if we change pronouns. I'm like, what? Like it's the intention remains the same, right? That it's just the gender play. It's not an emasculation. It's you could have been equivalent to your male peers, which you've been struggling against. You could have been more than them, in fact. Probably should have seen the writing on the wall with that one. And that was kind of why that was conversations that kept happening. Same thing with like changing the genders it as you like it, of like, how does it work at the end with the like an eye for no woman if you end up with a woman? We're like, she doesn't know. Like, but that anyway, yes, there was a little bit of friction, but I was like, nope, I'm sticking to my guns. This is what it is going to be. And I'm directing the thing. So hop on board.
Well said. Well said. So Tiff, now I know you mentioned that you had struggles with, going into foster care and stuff like that. Since that's happened, since now, like looking back on it, like influencing your work, do you think it has helped or like has given you an edge or what per se on things, on like relating to things like when you're going out for roles and stuff like that? What are your thoughts on that?
In some ways it helped, and in some ways it really didn't. So like, sort of interesting. I hear people say like the hard things they went through. Sorry, Chris is telling me I should talk more into the microphone. He has more experience on podcasts than I do, so I'm willing to listen to direction.
No worries. You're amongst friends.
I hear people say like the hard things they went through shaped them, but I don't really know if I like that, because I think it gives the hard things and the people that made those hard things happen an out or an excuse in a way. I would rather those terrible things hadn't happened.
Yeah.
But regardless that they did, I think it does help me in some ways. It helps me access emotion pretty quickly if I'm not forcing it. If I'm forcing it, it doesn't matter what you've been through. Like you can't force feeling. But if you learn technique in acting, which I did, I'm able to like open the floodgates in a way. And I think that partially it's easier because I've been through some tough stuff. And I think also I've been teaching kids and teens for the past year, and I taught kids for a long time before that. I taught summer camp. I really liked that. And I taught kids theater when I was in Oregon. And the thing I see a lot of with teens, especially, is they don't have a ton of experience in life that informs connecting to characters very well. So it's hard for them to empathize and really have emotion be a byproduct of the story. Instead, it becomes a focus because they may have only felt real true grief twice in their life, and it was because their dog died. And so sometimes they can't remember, they can't think of enough
or a relative
circumstance
that they didn't have a connection to begin with type deal.
Yeah. And I believe strongly that any circumstance that makes you feel that heavy grief is enough. Like you don't have to go through terrible, terrible stuff to be able to portray grief. Like little kids are great actors in TV and film sometimes, and stage. But generally, I think that my experience in foster care informed my work in that way, helping me to be able to access emotion. But I also think it helped me be more relatable to all the stories that I want to act in, or that I read, or that I see. Like I met a lot of other kids in foster care, and I have a lot of I have 5 siblings, so all of them have their own stories in that relation. And so I've become a person who's able to like really empathize with lots of different stories because of it. And I also, fun fact, made my thesis about my story about being taken away and how I dealt with it. And I don't know if it was a really great play, but it was good. I mean, it's hard to write a solo show. I don't think my show is a solo show. I think some people can write a solo show, but mine isn't. Mine is about community, because even though I was taken away and I was separated from my siblings, my story's always been about the people around me. And so I can't write I don't think my solo play is going to stay a solo play. I think it's going to become a multi-person show eventually.
Nice.
So yeah.
So obviously, speaking about your siblings, you are in contact with them or have been in contact with them. So do you ever find yourself, when you are doing a character, because you said they all have their own stories and stuff like that, do you ever like say, oh, I'm gonna take this from this is how she is, I'm gonna use this for like you're taking your surroundings and like implementing that in your work? Or not even just your sibling, but just like people, just close experiences, or just like people you've observed through your life.
Sometimes I think I make those connections after I've designed a character or discovered a character.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if I want to say created a character, because I don't pull it out of thin air.
Right.
It's sort of like that saying that nothing is created or destroyed. Characters aren't created or destroyed either. They're sort of just like, they take their different energies or forms that exist within me and exist within a story that I feel like I synthesize. And so later I might realize that a character had some similarities to somebody I knew, but I didn't, I haven't yet experienced where I pulled a character from anyone I knew, but I have seen characters that I know, like this great show at this great performance at UNCG in Sweat. Libby.
Oh yeah.
Reminded me. Yeah. Libby plays this mom who's
Rachel,
who's really struggling in one of the, I think so.
No, Tracy. It's Tracy.
Tracy. Oh yeah. It's like, I don't know. But she has this scene in Sweat where she's like living in her house with a bunch of trash everywhere, and she's miserable and everything's gone to shit. And that reminded me a lot of my own mom. It's a sad thing to say a little bit, but I was pretty emotional watching that scene. I was like, oh my God, Livy, you have no idea how good this is. So sometimes I see my family or my friends or the close people in my life in characters, but I also, it's weird time capsule in my brain once we were taken away. And you probably know this about other traumas. Like when you experience trauma, some things stay that age or stay in that brain for the rest of your life. Mm-hmm. And sometimes it's hard for me to realize my siblings are all adults and they're all still kids in my head a little bit. So I try to spend time with them as adults so that I can see them as adults, but right. I still see my little brother Jake running around in his diaper saying he wants a blue popsicle. So yeah.
Yeah. And also when you like doing something, when it comes to acting or watching something, something that could be like unrelated or something that triggers an emotion that you didn't even expect to happen. Like, 'cause I know that's happened to me just in like class and stuff, just like randomly doing something and it just triggers something else. And you're like, where did that come from? Like a lot to unpack. This question for both of you guys. So like when you see stuff like that in your, like in a performance or something that you can relate to, or that resonates with you, that, hits home, is that something that you appreciate? And does that dictate your thoughts on it being a good performance or not? Or yeah, how do you differentiate?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I think that for me, like the first and not necessarily only like bar to clear for me to be like, yeah, that was a really good performance, is seeing an honest to God human being in front of me. Like the second I see people who are trying to be human beings, my eyes just glaze over and roll into the back of my head. But even if it's not an experience in humanity that I have encountered personally, when I see it on stage, I still recognize the truth of it. Mm-hmm. I'll be talking about this production literally for the rest of my life, but seeing Mark Rylance in Jerusalem, in London, was like just like soul shatteringly good. And have I ever seen a human being like that? Hell no. Like that is a wild human being, but there was not a second of that performance that I could either look away from him or that had a false note. It was completely lived in, everything completely lived in and entirely human. And that makes all the difference. That makes all the difference to me. Then you could like get into some techniques of like, oh, okay, so they're really human and they don't quite know how to like keep themselves open yet, or they don't, quite know how to like keep their vocal projection up. But if their base level is humanity, holy moly, ceiling, there is no ceiling to their work. And that's what I see. That's what I see in Andre and what I saw in Andre when I first saw him work.
Yeah.
When we were in rehearsal, it's like, okay, like vocal tools, physical tools, like we'll keep, refining those of like his sense of space, staying open, good diction and, like physical openness, et cetera, but like, holy cow, he's just a human all the time. Like he doesn't know how to not be a human when he's on stage.
Yeah. I mean, he's a Duke fan, but we'll let him slide for that. But other than that,
well, we'll give him plenty of grief. Yeah. How'd that last game go, buddy?
No, but Andre, shout out to you. Yeah, for sure. Looking forward to seeing what he does. And actually working with him like directly and not indirectly. Because we were in a show together and we didn't work together. Like we had no lines together or any interactions. So
you were on stage together the whole time? What do you mean?
Yes. But
that's really interesting. I never thought about that. I never thought about the fact that what's his name? What's the character's name? Never talks to Judas and yet he's persecuting him.
El Fahumi, yeah.
El Fahumi, yeah, that's so interesting how wow. See, that's something that I think affects an actor a lot, and that's what really shows whether an actor is a really strong actor or if they're just a good actor. If they're not a good actor, is can they make a bad script still sound honest? And that script is really good, so it's kind of hard to mess it up. But that's really fascinating to know that that character is literally prosecuting Judas and never interacts with him.
my lawyer doesn't interact with me. The Jess's character who plays my lawyer didn't even interact with me. So yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, it's in my thesis I was writing about. It's kind of like, just people in general, just the media or just judgments on
media,
who don't know anything.
Politics,
yeah.
The law.
But so I want to touch base on how you guys met. And Chris, I know your ex-wife was an actor, correct? Or she acted?
Yes, she also was in the show.
Okay.
That we met doing. And Tiffany and I were playing spouses, and Daphne was playing the antagonist who was trying to drive a wedge between us, which is sort of horribly ironic in hindsight. Not that there was any intentional stuff, but I mean, folks were seeing the show and going like, are they? So, I mean, there was something there.
But this was prior, but I was going to ask, so because I was like, did that help your acting? Because you were like really, really living it.
Yes, it did. Yes, it did. And that's that kind of like touches on a broader thing from that whole summer, which like I am a firm proponent of the saying in theater that the things that the actors are working through personally will manifest in their work and vice versa. So if you identify things in the work that needs to be refined, it's also usually something in yourself you could continue to refine. Mm-hmm. Playing it was An Ideal Husband by Oscar Wilde. Our director did an adaptation of it and moved it from the House of Lords in England to the House of Representatives in contemporary Washington, D.C. And I was like, all right, so this guy could be just an irredeemable asshole, or if I work on accessing some of my own vulnerability in performance, this could be, he could maybe be like more compelling, more relatable. Mm-hmm. So working on that in rehearsal, it started to open up some stuff for me just in life that I was blocking really intensely and didn't realize. And I went, oh my God, I am so unhappy so incredibly unhappy, and started to broach that with Daphne, and wanted to go to counseling, and was rebuffed, and was trying to kind of figure that out as well, also doing that show and another show and producing a season and working at TSA at 4 a.m. and it just all compounded until finally like something had to give. So we have to be in touch with ourselves, and it did help the show. It did. And then like us having some like seeds of chemistry, like obviously didn't hurt anything either. And also I was acting with like one of my absolute best friends on the planet. Like most of my scenes were with Nate, who I think is like one of the finest actors I know that I've ever known or worked with. I can't wait to get to work with him again. I directed him like one time, and it wasn't even a meaningful role. Like, I can't wait for us to work again. So all my scenes are like with one of my best friends. And like, when we're talking about the stuff that's going on with Robert and going on with Arthur, like we were just talking.
Right.
Anyway.
I say acting is self-revelation.
Oh, who says that? I love that.
I forget who said it, but I think Steve told me it, but I forget who he heard it from. And I have it in my notes, but
look that up. I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I want to shout out to our Chris's friend Nicholas, his best friend Nicholas, one of his best friends, and my friend as well, because he recommended I submit to Penguin Productions. So shout out to Nicholas for
shout out to you, Nick,
helping us meet.
The wingman, didn't even know it. But Tiff, but I wanted to. So Tiff, your ex-husband wasn't a actor, correct? Okay.
Nope, he was a pastor.
Okay. We'll save that for the podcast.
Yeah.
But the reason what I wanted to say, so I wanted to ask, so Chris, you have experience with this. Tiff, this is your first time with the experience with being in a relationship with someone in the art space. So I just wanted to know, did you have any hesitations about that, or did you care? Like both of you, like Chris, I know you've had experience, but did it like turn you off on that, or like what's your thoughts on? Because I've heard mixed things as far as like especially if you're two actors, like you don't want it because they're never competing and stuff, and like, oh, she's getting jobs, he's getting jobs and stuff like that, or working in directing them and stuff like that, and that can cause strain in relationships. But what are your thoughts on being two artists in a relationship?
When I was an undergrad, I always said I didn't want to marry an actor at all. Funny enough, I was like, oh God, I hate them. I hate actors.
Well, Chris's first title was a director first, so I think
that's true. That's true. But it does help a lot, actually, that his focus is a different area. So I feel like now at this point, I have a master's in acting and he has a master's in directing. And so we both are, masterful in our craft in regards to a different aspect, which is nice because I feel like I have some strong knowledge in an area where I can help him, and I want to, because I'm a teacher at heart too. And he feels like he has knowledge of directing that I don't have and skills that I don't have. And so he's able to help me when I'm teaching or directing. And we're both very eccentric. We can bite at each other's heads sometimes. It's intense. But I didn't want to be with an actor before, and I found that life was really too slow for me with the person that didn't have the same speed. Mm-hmm. So I really enjoy that about Chris, is like we're both we call ourselves and people. We don't say yes because we do say no to things, but we're and people. We don't say this or that. We say, how about a little of this and a little of that? We're kind of just an all experiences couple. And that's just very fulfilling. It feels like I don't miss out on much in life. I have strong FOMO and Chris and I do so much and say yes to so many things and do them. And I think that's a big part comes from being an actor that's constantly or an artist that's constantly crafting and changing projects and moving around. So, and I feel like we try really hard to balance our I think this is a testament to just us as people and us as a couple, because not a lot of couples are good at supporting each other while also pursuing their own things without getting insecure.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we both sort of struggled with that in our first marriages, with imbalance between our partners and us, where if they were successful, we were jealous. If we were successful, they were jealous, and it was like a back and forth.
Mm-hmm.
But now, because we have experience with that, and a weird upside to getting, having that first trial, as much as I don't want to call it that, kind of ends up being that. That's pretty shitty to say, but sort of feels that way a little bit.
It happens.
That the second go around is is better because we have experience, and we're like, okay, I don't think this is worth like being jealous about. I think I can lift you up and celebrate. So this is being the and people. What do you think, Chris? I don't know.
Yeah. No, but I mean, to speak more to it, I think that the folks that are the actors that are like, oh, I could never date another actor, to me, I'm not going to call that like a red flag, but it makes me wonder, what are you afraid of? Like, what is it exactly that is giving you reservations? And usually I find it's true that often the folks that we hyperfixate on, or the traits that we hyperfixate on, like say in another like random actor who could be our partner, are the things that we recognize we also do. Mm-hmm. So I probably was a little trepidatious, to be honest, because I think that I directed Daphne a bunch of times, and because our personal relationship was so bad and dysfunctional on both our parts, mm-hmm. I'm not laying that at her feet by any means. Because that relationship was dysfunctional, our working relationship was equally dysfunctional. And so I was sort of like, God, is this what it's like to like direct your partner? And Tiffany and I haven't really done that yet. There's some small stuff like the Young Playwrights Festival. She was in the reading I directed for that, like this sketch comedy show we did. I kind of sort of directed one of the sketches she was in, but I don't have reservations about directing her because our personal relationship is constructive and supportive, and we can challenge when necessary in a constructive way. So I'm with it, but also I totally get, on the other hand, somebody that's like, this life's insane. I don't want to like have that double. Like, I'd rather be with somebody who like has more consistent employment, stable, not that. Yeah. Right. Yeah.
Makes a lot of money.
Yeah. Makes a lot of money. Or also just as like they work Monday through Friday, 9 to 5, they come home, they leave their work at the door. They don't have to be thinking about like, gosh, am I going to crack that scene, or wonder how that audition's going to turn out? And then they have their weekends and you move on and you go back to work, and it
right.
I love the 9 to 5.
But yeah, that's why I was saying that you guys are the power couple, because you guys are both in the art space. And from my perspective, it seems like you guys are always supporting each other, doing and still doing what you need to do, and not necessarily stepping on each other's toes and overstepping in that way. But you can always.
No, we do argue though.
Oh yeah, I mean,
when Chris directed some auditions for me, and I get defensive sometimes.
Like if you're in a relationship and you don't argue or have disagreements, I'm questioning that relationship.
Yeah, same. That's why I had to put that one in there.
Seems more like a dictatorship if that's the case. But yeah, it comes with compromise and stuff like that. But overall, I see like you went to school, he came with you. You graduated, he got into school, you came after you finished school. And it's like, yeah, you guys are like two peas in a pod, essentially. And
yeah,
like,
now we just got hired together at Utah Tech University.
Yes. We'll get there, Tiffany. My gosh.
Sorry.
No, I'm just joking. But yeah, like you guys are able to maneuver this crazy art world together. And, it's very rare that you see that. At least from what I've seen and I've heard. And it's nice to have a prime example, personal prime example of that, to let people know that it is possible and it can't happen. But yeah, let's talk about some art stuff now. And we got a little a lot personal.
Yeah, that's true. We got real personal.
Art is life, Russell.
Yes.
Yes, life.
So speaking of
reflects art.
So what are your thoughts on that in regards to art being life for you guys? What's your thoughts and perspective on art and life in your lives? Like, yeah. Like, how important is it to you in your life?
I mean, I think the more that I could do that isn't theater, the more that I'm going to be a human being. You know what I mean? Like, I think that's where it's art. That's where art is life for me. That I can only know my humanity when I'm out doing a bunch of stuff that's not in a theater with an audience. And then when I take that into a theater with an audience, whether it's as an actor or a director, it's going to better inform my work. It's going to better inform my ability to connect with people. It's definitely going to make me more empathetic. Like, I cannot imagine how people live in the same place and never even like travel out of area or out of state. Like, that's the problem we got right now, like in the US and elsewhere, is people are so pocketed off that if you traveled, like lived somewhere else, even if it's just for a few months, like, oh my God, you would have so much more empathy for your neighbor. So, or that's what it comes back to for me.
Just being open to trying things and just doing something out of the ordinary that you would do would even help. And I'll get to you in a minute, Tiffany. I just wanted to make this point because he had brought it up. Because I was talking to Natalie, and when I interviewed her, and she made a good point. And it's like, you can find art pretty much in anything. And I believe maybe Jim has said this too, or just in general, just like general psychology, like how we are depending on who we're with. Like, that's art and acting, and we're acting and performing all the time depending on who's around and who, so so it's like intertwined and you can't get away from it.
No, I don't think there's any delineation, frankly, which is where I differ from John the G goalie, is that I'm like, no, it's literally like, I would literally like sit on the front porch and drink coffee with Tiffany and sell tickets to it and call it theater. Because I think it is, because I think it's more real than realism. Like, Ayana, when we were working on the Julies, co-directing the Julies together, when we were thinking about those interludes where the actors need to like believably be out of character, we were sort of like, okay, we can either go the way we ultimately did, which I kind of wish we hadn't, which is it's a second character that's different from themselves and from the character they play in the scripted sections, or they could literally be indistinguishable from themselves. And she called it actualism, because they would actually be themselves with those words, and we would want the audience to be confused as to whether or not they were still doing the play. So I think it's identically the same. And I don't think anybody, I know like very few people who would agree with me, at least at UNCG, but yeah, it literally is. That's what we're doing. We're trying to create human behavior. So if you are literally doing human behavior so indistinguishable from any theatrical artifice, like, I think that will be thrilling.
Yeah. Like, I always joked to Brown and was like, yeah, they just pay me for living. Like, you got these Kardashians getting paid and that's scripted. And it's like, yeah, just let's follow us around and you'll get some interesting things here and there. I'm not going to tell you it's going to be interesting all the time, but but when it is, it's good.
Like the Truman Show.
Yes. But yes, Tiffany.
I don't know how to answer this really, because it's so big. But I just think, I guess a couple of things that come to mind are that two things: that existence is theatrical in its elemental form. Just existing is a theatrical act, and the universe is very theatrical, and spectacle and story all in one. So we can't really escape that. But I don't know, even more simple than what I've been hearing, I think that art is presence. So I like art that doesn't feed me anything specifically, instead lets me sort of chew on it and explore it. Like a painting that you see and it for some reason makes you cry and you're like, this makes no sense. It's shapes on a black background with some scribbles in that corner. And then I don't know, like that's the kind of art that I like to see. And it doesn't really matter what form it takes, whether it's theatrical acting, if it's filmic, if it's a painting, it's all telling a story. And I just saw this fantastic movie that I wish I could just talk about forever, called Nope by Jordan Peele.
I just watched it.
Oh, I'm so glad you've seen it. It's amazing.
Yes.
I love it because
it was so, the one scene I was a little disturbed, and I'm sure you know what scene I'm talking about. And it was so
no, there's like 5.
the first one.
Nope, still doesn't clarify it for me. Are you talking about the monkey, or are you talking about the insides?
It's after the star lasso.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to spoil anything else.
Okay. Yeah, that's really messed up.
Yeah.
But
I was like,
I love that movie.
I had such a visceral reaction to that when I saw that. I was
yeah. Did you throw up?
I didn't, but I was like, and then because I watched it with Laura, my fiance. And she was like, you hear the screams, and I was like, oh, it just made it worse. I was like, I wasn't paying attention to that, but thanks for bringing it to my, like, I was like,
yeah,
yo, but yeah, that is a good movie for sure.
Yeah, I bring it up because I'm still chewing on it. There's so much to get from it, and I like that. And then Jordan Peele doesn't. A lot of people ask him, "What did you mean by this? What did you mean by this?" And he doesn't really give them an answer. He tells them,
yes,
it means what you think it means,
right? Because
he wants you to interpret it like art. It's art,
giving you agency. Don't want to just spoon feed you stuff, and let you think for yourselves. And
we're not used to that, though.
Yes,
culture has trained it out of us in a lot of ways, and so we feel unnatural with it.
Mm-hmm. I had a point, but then I got distracted.
Sorry, got talking about Nope.
No, you're good. So that's what I wanted to talk about. So Chris, I wanted to circle back to what you had said about when you were casting the gender roles and stuff like that, and you've made it pretty adamant throughout your time at UNCG with how you approach your directing and stuff like that. What made you start approaching things like that? Why are you so conscious of that as opposed to other people who aren't?
I kind of had this like major artistic crisis in like 2015 to 2016, which I'm still kind of not. I feel better about it now, but it still kind of scratches at me where, like, it was clear to me that the stories that I thought needed to be told theatrically were ones that involved people who do not look like me, who come from a very different life experience than me. And if that's the case, then how could I justify like my own pursuit of a directing career if I know I'm not the one to do those stories? Mm-hmm. And I'm also, at that time, I was still like well in the process of doing graduate school applications. It took me like 5 application cycles to get in. And then I thought, well, I'm writing all these application materials trying to justify my inclusion in an extremely exclusive series of programs. But I don't even think that I'm the person who should be directing all the stuff on stage that I think needs to be seen right now to create empathy for marginalized communities. And so I was like, what the hell do I do with that? Like, and I could not solve it. I couldn't. I still can't. And I had some mentors that steered me in one direction. And I had one very vocal mentor who we have fallen out since then, who was absolutely adamant that the only way that I could actually walk the walk on that would be to stop applying for grad school and to do a different part of theater. And I was not willing to do that. As to whether or not that means that she is ultimately correct about me is, I suppose, for others to interpret. But that was, as you know, from God, what was the name of that course? Collaboration, the course we had with Natalie the first semester. Like, that was the question that I was trying to answer during my time at graduate school, and why I wanted to cast Macbeth that way was to start trying to figure out, what does this mean? Now I know, it's not as simple as just like substituting a gender identity or an ethnicity into a role, because you may be messaging things you don't realize.
Mm-hmm.
Like, there's more to it than just like plug and play, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
And Natalie was, I mean, I cannot express the depths of my gratitude to her for the way that she guided me through that. And I think first and foremost, the thing that I needed was, how do I put this? The simple fact that she said, what you're doing is part of this change that you want to see. You do know that, right? And I kind of was like, I don't know that I do know that. But the fact that she believed that and saw that and wanted me to be as involved in things like scaffolding change and search committees and like my own directing practices, and which, like sometimes, Gilly would be like, yes, this is great. Like, I think that's great. And sometimes he would want me to pump the brakes a little bit, and I would have to figure out, like, where do I sit in that, like that spectrum of action and non-action and being careful and just doing the thing. And, but I'm more settled now to know that, yes, there are things I can do. Yes, my practices are helpful. And no, the answer is not to just erase myself. Yeah, I don't know if I explicitly answered that, but
no,
I don't know that I have an explicit answer yet.
Yeah, I don't think there is necessarily a clear-cut answer. I think the answer is you trying and attempting and getting guidance and being open, and
knowing when to get out of the way is a big one, and
being aware of what you're doing and knowing and having knowledge of your privilege and being able to use it to the best of your ability that you can. So, and that's all you can ask for. I mean, we're not asking you to change the world, I mean, just help with what you can do, and hopefully others will follow suit. So I'd say thank you for that. And I think that's all you need. That's all the answer that that's good enough, so I wouldn't stress over it too much. And I know you don't, because you do what you need to do for, that you believe is going to help, and it's coming from a genuine place. And,
thank you.
You're welcome. So, so Tiffany, so what I know you had briefly mentioned about school, and we'll get to it, about teaching. I mean, we'll get to it, but as far as acting and like being a voice teacher and stuff like that, where do you see yourself, or what would you like to do for long-term career goals in terms of the acting as well as your dialect coaching and stuff like that?
There's like a bunch of things that would make me really happy. So right now I'm kind of like, I want to be in a Jordan Peele movie. Yes. I really want to be in a Jordan Peele movie so bad. Right now. I know. He's just, I've seen interviews where it's all about how collaborative he is. Mm-hmm. And I want to work with directors like that. So any director who's collaborative like that and is willing to work with the actors to create the character story and everything, instead of being sort of this untouchable director that we have that image of people. I want that. So, and I'm happy. I would just love that to be at any, professional company. I could see myself happy working at like Utah Shakespeare Festival or any kind of like a repertory or Lort theater that, you know, pays me well, like respectfully, and does good work. You know, I'd also really love to like originate a role that gets published. So like part of why I want to move to Chicago so much is because in Chicago there's a lot of work that's new work and goes to Broadway after that. And it's like I would love to be the, you know, the person in the name or the name in that play that gets published that says this role was first performed by, and I want to be that person. So that's one, those are a couple of the things that I would really be happy doing. And then in like 20 years, I'd like to be a professor at a college. I'm going to be an adjunct professor, but I really would love to be like a full-time professor in like 20 years and be teaching people, but I want to have that 20 years of experience that's really strong behind me. Mm-hmm. So I can offer, you know, I know I have a lot of strong experience, especially when I work with new actors and stuff, but it's not enough for me. I want to be able to teach master students. And at this point in my life, I would need more, experience and credentials and such, I think, to feel like a master student would feel like I was able to teach them something. A lot of the time they're looking for somebody with 5 or 10 more years of experience than you have in something, even if it's in one thing. So in regards to voice and speech, like I'm happy to keep on voice coaching and teaching people dialects and getting better at the body work side of that, which is like Linklater, Fitzmaurice stuff. I really like that stuff. I'm actually interested in getting certified in yoga because I feel like these certifications in the theater world are really extremely expensive and actors just don't have that kind of money. So it's sort of like, I don't understand why it's $8,000 to get certified in something. I just don't get it. Like, I think that's ridiculous. And I think that we can't, with paywalls like that, how are we? I don't know. I don't know why it's expected we go into so much debt. I would rather go spend money on something that's similar. You know, Fitzmaurice, for example, is yoga adjacent in a lot of ways. It just uses tremoring and it's boiled down. That's what it is. So I'd go get certified in yoga and spend like half that much money. So those are some of my like goals, I guess. And I'm happy that they're always constantly shifting and changing because once you achieve them, you know, you got to have something new to chase. I don't want to like just chill. I want to be like Betty White and keep acting until I die.
Oh yeah, Clint Eastwood. He's doing it still too. How about you, Chris? I think I've asked you this before, but do you see yourself doing films, or is it strictly theater and teaching and stuff like that?
It's really interesting. Like a week and a half ago, 2 weeks ago, usually when I think about like new stories, like things I want to write, they usually come to me theatrically, and I can kind of see flashes of what it would look like theatrically. But I had this idea that just came to me one morning when I was waiting for the bus in Anchorage, and I imagined it so filmically. And I'd never done that. It had never happened to me before. And so I kind of went, oh, wow. Like, I think that's a screenplay. Like, that's not a play. That's definitely a screenplay. So I think it just depends on what the story is. And the more years go by that we like really aggressively see a lot of the good films that are coming out every year, and even not just good films, but like as much as possible, it just starts to inform my performative imagination in a way that's more filmic, but primarily still, you know, it's plays and teaching for sure. I've wanted to teach for forever, which is as important to me to get a master's, like that side of things, as the drilling down on my craft side of things, was just knowing that would be the opportunity to finally teach some college classes, get a sense of, do I want to do this? And then if I realize, oh yeah, totally I do, which I did, that I've got some practical experience I could throw on my CV. It can launch me out into the world. I love working with college age actors. They're just so, like, they know enough about themselves and about their craft usually to sort of know they've got something, but they don't know how to use all of it yet. And I love to see I love to see stuff come out of people that surprises them and surprises other people. Yeah.
Nice. So at this point in your career lives, or in personal lives as well, what motivates you? What keeps you going to keep pursuing this? Besides, you just got a degree in it. You got to make use of it.
Paying off them loans. No, I mean, like partially, but anyway. It's excellence. What I love about theater is that it is you versus yourself. Mm-hmm. Like all this like manufactured garbage about we're in competition with each other and we're training you to compete against us. No, we're not. Yeah. No, we're not. We're training you to learn how to constantly be in competition with yourself, which is why I like rock climbing so much, not to like wildly veer off the subject of performative arts, but
it's an art as well. Rock climbing.
It is. It's a physical art. And the thing that I love so much about it is you versus you. And so much of what has helped me get better at climbing so much in a year is working on like the mental component and working on the preparatory component, like trying to perfect technique, trying to like better be able to look at a situation from the outside, analyze it quickly, and then give that solution a go and see if it's the one that's going to work. Because the point of rock climbing is literally to climb harder rocks. Like that's the only point of it. And in theater, the goal of theater, as far as I'm concerned, is to perform more difficult roles, to direct more difficult and challenging shows. It's like to constantly be striving for excellence. Because I was not naturally gifted in this. Like I was just not. Like I was surrounded by people in high school who were so much more charismatic than me, who sang better than me, who made bolder choices than me. It came so easily to them. And the only way that I could keep up with them was to work twice as hard as all of them at all times. And that has never left me, Even at UNCG, like years later, 18 credits every semester after the first semester, committees, extra projects, festivals, conferences, give it to me. Like I am going to put myself in a position. I will outwork everybody around me if I have to. I will work as hard as I know I am capable of working, because that's the only thing that's going to make a difference is the time that I put in for myself. So that's what it is for me. It's always scratching in the back of my mind, like that next show. Same with rock climbing, like that. I spent 3 sessions outside trying to climb this particular route on a rock, and I didn't get it. And it's going to bother me for a year. It's going to bother me for a year, Russell. Yeah, the one of like me. Yeah, and I was close. I'm so pissed that I punted on that, but. It's the same thing with theater. Like I'm always itching at like, oh man, this would be such a cool Macbeth, or, oh man, I can't wait till I get to do the Nether. Oh man, like this is going to be like, what's that going to be like? What's this class that I'm teaching going to be like? It's always scratching in the back of my mind. And I know I have to keep getting better to get there.
Yeah, it was funny you said the you versus you thing, because I've been seeing people walking around with like the Buffalo versus everybody shirts. I'm sure you've seen those, like, this is a city versus everybody. And I was like, I'm going to make a shirt that says me versus me, because that's what it is.
I will buy that shirt and I will wear it.
For sure. But Tiffany, what's your motivation?
That's a tough one. I had to think about it I'm glad Chris went first. I think my true motivation is my 6-year-old self, my 16-year-old self, and my 26-year-old self. I just don't think that anything really matters except that what you give meaning to. And so what I do doesn't really matter at all in this life, because we're all going to die and everything's going to burn up anyways. So like, why? And the answer for why for me is because my 6-year-old self, my 16-year-old self, and my 26-year-old self all wanted me to be who I am now and who I will be. And so like, I guess my 31-year-old self's now in there. I'm 32 now, but 31-year-old's probably the next monumental one. I think 28 probably, then not 26, but I like the 6 sort of like the same. Oh no, that's 3 6s. But still, like that's who I'm constantly trying to impress and make me happy is my younger selves. I used to spend my whole life trying to impress other people. And then when I got to be in, actually, I think it was right after I got divorced, when I was like 28 and I met Chris and stuff, I realized I didn't want to impress Chris at all. And I didn't want to impress my friends or my sister or anything. It was me. I just wanted to make sure that I was satisfying that younger self that saw themselves in the future. And if I met myself, I would think I was so cool. And that's a really cool, fulfilling feeling at the end of my life.
Yeah, man, that's deep. 6-year-old. No, like when you think about it, yeah, like looking back and, they ask you, what would you tell your younger self or your future self and all this stuff. And it's like, yeah, it's like, hopefully, that they got something good to look forward to. So
yeah.
But in that same vein or breath, what advice would you give, or whether it be career advice, personal advice, that you would give to not only your younger self, but like just people who had interest in being in this field or going on this journey? What would you tell them?
To find real, true confidence in themselves. I had a lot of confidence as a teenager, but I was also very insecure at the same time. So some of it was fake confidence. Mm-hmm. And it's good. It's better to fake it than to let it beat you down, I think. At least it was for me. But I would say to find true confidence in yourself. And that might be through many methods. Like, you can't really have full confidence in yourself if you struggle with deep insecurities or depression. You have to battle that stuff and find a way to heal from some of it. So like the only thing that made me finally feel 100% confident in myself, and I constantly, I guess I add, it's like 99%, but like when I was about 28 and I got separated from my husband, I just felt like really, I grew in a lot of confidence in the things that I felt deep down that I never let out. Mm-hmm. And healed a lot, went to counseling for several years and healed so many wounds internally that I really, truly found confidence in myself. So I think that's what I would say is like, if you want to be an actor, if you want to be an artist, have confidence in your art, no matter what stage you're at, no matter what skill level you're at. And I'd say that to myself as a teenager, like, I can't barely say that without getting choked up because I needed to hear that. Like, you are valuable just because you exist. I hear people say like, I want to be worthy. I'm like, worthy of who? Yourself. Be worthy to yourself, to your younger self. It's not a selfish thing. It's a more kind of a focus or a centered thing. And then I think when I have a kid, and they don't exist yet, but I think when I have a kid, I'm going to care a lot about whether or not I'm worthy of them. So yeah, ask yourself, am I who I want to be? And if the answer is no, then you don't have to give up or become devastated or let despair hold you back. Just start taking small steps to change the things you don't feel are things that make you proud or make your younger self proud. Because your younger self would probably give you a hug. My 6-year-old self would so give myself a hug and be like, it's okay. You can just try again tomorrow. Yeah. So you sort of have to do some weird healing like that. That's internal. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. I resonate with all that. For sure.
Speaking of collaboration, I would tell me and anybody that chip on your shoulder is going to cut you deeper than it's going to make you strong. Really recently, like since UNCG, realized like how negative that has been affecting me. And I thought it was like I can, this is fuel, like, oh, they don't, they're not going to take me seriously. Well, fine. Like, screw you. You'll see my show, blah, blah, blah. Or, oh, you don't think I can get such and such role? Thinking about like high school. Fine. Like, we'll see what's up at auditions. Not healthy at all, because eventually it's going to start talking to you and then start talking for you. And you will start manufacturing situations to find slights in that don't exist with people who certainly do not deserve that assumption. Case in point, I can't remember what the conversation was about, but I like snapped a little bit over text message or something to Tiffany, and then went, I can't even assume like positive intent from my wife when I think that she slighted me. Why would she would never do that ever? But it was talking to me, and then it was talking through me, and it was like, oh yeah, she's saying that you're not, this, that, and the other thing. Like, that's preposterous. Yeah,
I resonate with that as well.
I want to add something.
Yes.
I just want to add that a big tip of advice that I want to offer to artists and theater makers and actors.
Go to counseling.
Yeah, no, that's true. But
is that not it? Oh, okay, because everyone should go to counseling, but artists especially should go to counseling.
Yes, go to counseling. But it's that you are more than your job. Your work as an actor is your job. And we just make it like our whole freaking life when we're teenagers. We're like, my whole identity is I'm a theater kid. Mm-hmm. And then it kind of follows you for a long time, and you forget that you need to have hobbies, and you need to have, things that you like to do that don't.
In order to those lives.
Yes, art is life. Art isn't just stuck in a black box with lights and people in an audience. It's so much more than that. So you can get better at your art by not doing your art.
Yeah, that is true. So, yes. So now the moment we've been waiting for.
Bum, bum, bum.
What's next for you guys?
I remember this question comes up. Sorry. I've listened to your podcast and I love it.
Because also you were talking about the teaching earlier. So.
Okay, so what's up next? Multiple things. Coming up next on Team Gilly-Forrer, Chris and Tiffany are moving to St. George, Utah, aka the middle of nowhere.
It's cool. I'm sure people don't even know where Utah is outside of Salt Lake anyway. So
yeah. We are moving to Utah Tech University, which is indeed the middle of nowhere, but in a good way, actually. It's right in the middle of all of the national parks down there. And Chris and I, one of our biggest loves in life, besides theater and storytelling and film, is the outdoors. Like, we love to do stuff outdoors. So we're going to be 2 hours from the Grand Canyon and less than an hour from Cedar City, which is where Utah Shakespeare Festival is, less than an hour to Zion National Park, 2 hours from Vegas. So we're just going to have a lot of things at our fingertips. Yeah. We're teaching. Yeah, really nice. We're teaching several classes. I'm teaching voice and diction with Matt Koenig, who is Chris's friend and our colleague now. And that's going to be an exciting adventure for me. And then I'm teaching understanding film, which is very, very thrilling because I've been wanting to do that. I've been wanting to build a curriculum for teaching film that isn't just a bunch of white history. So I actually learned something from Nope, that the first motion picture ever captured was a black man on a horse.
I was going to say, is Nope going to be one of the films you have them?
No, Get Out is actually.
Okay, nice.
I think Get Out is better for film history sort of stuff to say, what did this amazing horror film accomplish? And because it's sort of a first time that I know of comedy in horror, not like a really badly made horror comedic film, a good comedy horror film. And then I'm also dialect coaching Men on Boats, with it for the undergrad main stage production. And I'm taking 6 months off of acting. I've intentionally decided to take 6 months off to break and write some stuff, like you said, writing. I have a screenplay idea, 2 screenplay ideas. One I can't tell you about, but because Chris says everybody will steal it. But the other one is called,
especially if you put it on
on a podcast. It's very good. And then the other one is called Disc Heads, and it's about disc golfers. And it's a pretty decent idea that I have. That's going to be sort of a Will Ferrell, Tina Fey sort of style comedy. So I just got to get writing it. So I'm taking a break from acting so I can try to spend some time on that, all while teaching and all that stuff.
Taking breaks is definitely important.
Yeah, Chris, anything to add?
Well, we can cut this part out.
we keep everything in.
Oh no, it's all going in. It's all going in. That's me adjusting the pop filter on the microphone. Yeah, I think this is just an illustration. This job coming together is just an illustration of like folks are going to get you so much further than whatever ability you may possess, which will get you far. But it is an industry about knowing folks and cultivating good relationships and like being a person who is a joy to work with and somebody who also like isn't afraid to call bullshit too. Because I do bad at PCPA, and he was a resident artist. I was an intern. We got on really well, and I did this staged reading of Dealer's Choice by Patrick Marber. I was like, hey, like I'd love for you to be in this. And he was like, yeah, absolutely. And that was like unheard of for a resident artist to do like a side project with an intern. Mm-hmm. And so that lent like some major legitimacy. We had a really good time, and I think it was a really good reading. Fast forward to SETC this year in Memphis, and I'm going through the programming guide looking for workshops, and I see that Matt's running one. So I sent him a text, and I'm like, hey, we got to get together. And so we go get some barbecue, of course, because it's Memphis, best barbecue on earth. And Matt says, yeah, I'm going to do a show next semester, and Molly, who's a mutual friend from PCPA, is covering all my classes. I went, okay, great. And, off we went on our merry ways. And then I get a call from him on a Tuesday, close to the end of the semester. And I've been applying my ass off, trying to get any teaching job that I can and not getting a lot of bites because I'm fresh out of grad school. Right. Mm-hmm. And Matt calls me and says, I know this is out of nowhere. I know Molly was covering my classes. Now she's not. Can you teach acting, movement, and voice and diction? Because I will put you into the program head. And I said, and this is where like supporting your partner and putting them out for stuff. Yeah, it comes in, the power couple comes in place. Like I can teach acting and movement. I can't teach voice and speech, but my wife can. And so he pitched us to the program head as a pair. And we met with her on Thursday, same week, for about 20 minutes, maybe 25 minutes. And it was pretty much, you can teach this? I'm like, yeah. And Tiffany, you can teach that? Yeah. Great. You want the job? Absolutely. Hey, we also need a section of understanding film covered. How do you feel about that? Tiffany's like, I love it. Let's do it. And there we are. Yeah. So teaching acting, teaching movement, and probably trying to pick up a show at one of the local theaters. Maybe not. I want to get a part-time job working at the bouldering gym in St. George, because my buddy suggests it's a really good way to meet all the good climbers in the area. So you can go out with them, so you can pick stuff up from them. And also, if you work at the gym, you usually climb free, which would be a good saved expense.
Can't miss the opportunity for that perk for sure. Get your
Oh no, absolutely not.
And then that rock is you're gonna come next year or whenever you go back, you're gonna climb that rock.
Oh, I am. I am for sure. I'm for sure going back. It's hard to be anywhere else in the summer. It's just so incredibly beautiful up there. And we were out 4 times, I think, climbing, which is like double what I did last summer. And it makes you way better in the gym, definitely. Yeah. And I got a lead on a job that I'm gonna take a look at that would be for spring. That would be like a multi-year contract sort of deal, which would be a little more permanent than what we're doing in Utah. And so I'm gonna check that out. One of Tiffany's colleagues from grad school has already name dropped me out there. They're on faculty out there, Western Kentucky. And so I'll take a peek at it, look at how many years they'd want me to be there, look at what they're paying. Because I love Allen to death.
Very close to Nashville.
Yeah, and they're partnerly, I love them to death. And yeah, they're in close proximity to a couple of bigger cities. But that'd be pretty cool. And that'd be like acting, directing faculty, which is definitely my wheelhouse. So we shall see what comes of that. But we're moving to Utah on Friday.
Nice. Yes, it's all about, like you said, in this industry for sure, it's not about what you know helps, but it's, a lot of who you know. And also too, it's about, you don't need everyone to say yes. You just need one, at least one. Mm-hmm. You get one, you're good.
Yeah. And conduct yourself well with literally everybody you meet, because you never know who that person's going to be that gets you that job. They won't recommend you if you're a piece of garbage.
It's tempting to burn that bridge. And oh, buddy.
Yeah.
When that semester ended in May, was I tempted, but I will not do it. I will not do it because I don't know who I'm going to be looking at across the table in 5 to 10 years.
There's another quote I have. It's there's always someone watching you who has the power to bless you, but who are they watching you be?
Ooh, that's really good. That's really good.
Yes. Guys, I want to thank you for joining me. Before I say the last question, how can we stay in touch with you guys? What's your, do you have any, I know, Tiff, you have several businesses. Are you going to be doing those still, the headshots and the voice?
No, I'll do it for students, but I'm happily doing a day job, and that makes me enough money so I don't have to do 60 jobs. Okay. I'll just be teaching, and my day job that pays the bills is, a great office work from home thing. So I'm lucky there. But to keep in contact or follow or that kind of thing, I use Instagram a lot. So Instagram is at T Gilly-Forrer. That's T Gilly-Forrer. And then I have a website and I update that regularly. So that's TiffanyGilly-Forrer.com. Pretty straightforward. If you Google me, it'll go there. I've been working on it for like 10 years to make it so that when you Google me, you only see stuff that has me in it. So you just Google.
She's Google worthy.
She is. I'm not, but look at her. I mean, come on. I do have a website, technically speaking, that Tiffany built for me, which is beautiful. ChrisGilly-Forrer.com. You Google me, you'll find me. I'm on Instagram and it's mostly adventure pictures. But see some of the sights of Alaska via that / whatever crazy adventures we're doing. So that's the main stuff.
Sweet. So final question, guys. When it's all said and done, what would you like your legacy to look like?
I'll go first because mine's probably not going to be as good as Chris. My legacy. I just hope that for as long as humanity exists while the planet's burning, I hope that people.
I just watched I was watching Bill. Sorry, just cut you. I was watching Bill Maher on Friday, and they were talking about that. I was like, "Yo, this is really scary." But that's another podcast. We'll...
Yeah, before humanity dies, I hope my legacy is just. I just hope that when people think of me, that they smile, that they feel good vibes for a minute, that when I dissipate into existence, that the force that existed around me will surround them in a moment of joy, because we don't get enough moments of joy in such a chaotic world. And that's enough for me. So, yeah.
Yeah, that's enough. Should be enough for anybody.
Chris is looking for something, I think, for demonstrating his answer. So, whether it be in films or plays or classes that you took with me, I hope you look back and laugh or smile or chuckle. And you're like, oh, I always had a good time with Tiff.
Yes.
Artistically speaking, and this kind of goes back to a lot of the stuff I was talking about in terms of working through my little existential crisis over the last 6 years. I hope nobody knows what I was doing because it's not about me at all. I want to make it better than it was when I got here. That was my number one goal when I got to UNCG. And everywhere I go, I hope to do the same. And if nobody has any idea who I am, that is perfect because I don't want the ink. Personally, there's this epitaph that I saw at a graveyard in Scotland. I took a picture of it. It almost made me cry. I was like, this is just so beautiful. It was erected by his friends and the people he worked with. John Redpath, Esquire, whose unassuming, amiable character, integrity, and sterling worth made him friends wherever he was known, and where best known and longest, the sentiment never failed to increase. It is believed he never lost a friend, nor had an enemy. I thought, my God, if I could be remembered with a fraction of that, what a life lived that would be.
I told you his was going to be better.
It's just different, not that, there's no better.
Yeah, get out of here with better.
I choose his answer now.
Comparison is the thief of joy, Tiff.
Yes.
Uh,
And you had joy in yours. I mean, and you were just talking about confidence. Have confidence in you.
okay, my answer and his. I also adopted.
Yes, you can take it, layer it on, like Jim Wren says. You just take it, layer it on. You don't.
Yeah, mine's the
take
spongy
away.
inside of the cake.
Yes. Well, guys, I appreciate your time, as always, and hopefully we get to work together again. Well, Tiffany, we've worked behind the scene, but not as far as acting. But maybe
We're gonna get cast in a Jordan Peele movie. It's all good.
Oh, that'd be dope, for sure, for sure. And then Chris would be like an AD on it or something.
I'll get coffee. I don't care. Like, just let me in the presence of this man. I told Steve that when we were having lunch. I was like, man, I'll be the coffee boy. He didn't take me seriously enough. I should have doubled down.
Yeah, I should have. Yeah. You should have just
Steve, PA, Dune 2. Come on, man.
When he was talking about that picture, that headshot, you should have just put your information on it.
No, I know. I was like, well, now I'm screwed. I definitely can't now.
Guys, thank you.
Steve, if you're listening, PA, Dune 3.
Yes. Thank you guys for joining me and us on another episode of Art is Life. And like I say all the time, peace, love, and blessings.